Hey, this is Ishveen Jolly, founder and CEO of Open Sponsorship, and this is the Sports Business Conversations podcast from ADC Partners.
Hey, this is Dave Almy of ADC Partners, and I suppose it's probably no surprise that Ishveen Jolly's parents both wanted her to become a doctor. They're both successful doctors after all, and they were probably measuring her for a stethoscope when she got into Oxford. I don't know, do you measure people for stethoscopes? It shows you about what I know about the medical profession. What Mom and Dad Jolly probably didn't expect was that their daughter would major in economics, get bitten by the sports business bug, and launch a startup that counts Serena Williams and David Blitzer among its investors. No, it's not a medical career, but I suspect Ishveen Jolly's parents are pretty proud nonetheless. Ishveen is prone to finding exploitable niches. Her first venture connected sports properties in India and the West at a time when almost no one was thinking about cross-border sponsorships. But around 2014, while watching Uber and Airbnb reshape entire industries through marketplace efficiency, she had her light bulb moment. Why couldn't this happen in sponsorship? So in 2015, she launched Open Sponsorship. 11 years in, what started as a marketplace connecting brands and sports properties has evolved into what Ishveen now calls a tech-enabled agency for athlete and influencer marketing. The platform now has over 33,000 athletes in its network and crossed into profitability in 2024. In our conversation, Ishveen and I talk about that pivot from team and property deals to athlete marketing and why she had to learn to love that pivot. We dive into what's driving the sharp increases in athlete marketing deal sizes, the NIL boom, and what brands often misunderstand about it, and the questions she thinks brands should be asking right now to get more out of their influencer spend. She also shares what blisses are out more than even a well-organized inbox. And the answer is, well, honestly, very on brand. So thanks for listening in on my conversation with Ishveen Jolly, CEO and founder of Open Sponsorship. Hope you enjoy. All right, so Ishveen, take me back to 2014, okay? Because you were running another company at this time, like you were creating sports partnerships that were linking India and the West. And at what point, I wonder, did you think, yeah, it's time for a new venture, to see a new opportunity? When did what became Open Sponsorship start to become clear as the next step?
Love the question, actually, because not many people researched a bit before Open Sponsorship. And so, yes, I was.
We got a whole team back there just doing nothing but crunching the numbers, Ishveen, right? So we got to ask these kinds of questions. These are the probing questions.
I like it. Yeah, no, so I suppose I started the company before this because I really believed in cross-border sponsorships. And at that time, now it's obviously a bit more common, but at that time, I'm a full disclosure Manchester United fan, and they were smashing it. I think they had like 35 telecom partners. They had a telecom partner in Afghanistan and all these crazy places. But no one else was really thinking global, like regional sponsorships, and it wasn't really being done. Media rights obviously weren't. So that's kind of what I set out to do. And then I suppose it was using in my personal life. I just started, if you remember 2014, like Uber had just come out and launched in cities like San Francisco and New York. Airbnb was becoming a thing. ZocDoc was a company I was using in New York for like booking doctors. And so I think I was just like, wait,
something's happening.
This is like efficient. Yeah. And why can't we have this in our industry? So very naively thought that's it.
Piece of cake. We'll just make this happen. So how did you literally stop doing one and begin the other, or did it sort of phase into one another as you got rolling with Open Sponsorship?
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of a phase.
Yeah.
And at first you're like circulating the idea. You're like, does it make sense? And some people ask me like, how do you know when, you should launch?
Yeah.
And I remember like I would wake up in the morning and I'd be scared that like someone would send me something and be like, this reminded me of our conversation that we talked about this company. And I was scared that someone else was building it. And I was like, right, I need to get on this because I am thinking about this all the time. And then obviously made all the mistakes, like got a technical advisor, not a full-time person, but like made all the rookie mistakes. Being a non-technical founder, like, you know.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
AI now.
Yeah.
You have literally no clue, yeah.
So I'm curious too, right? Because you launched Open Sponsorship in 2015 as a marketplace to connect brands and properties at that time. And there's been other attempts to create, like you said, you're thinking about, oh God, somebody else doing this. But there's been other attempts out there, some successful-ish, others very much not successful. You're 11 years in now. So, yeah, okay, maybe there was that early period of time where you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but clearly something worked. So where do you think you got a little bit of secret sauce that contributed to success where others may have struggled?
Sheer resilience. I think the trick is there's a few things. One is being so passionate about the mission that like you keep going, right? So I love sponsorship. Like I fell into sponsorship many years ago and I was like, wow, this is, you know, like this is a thing. Obviously I love the sports industry, having grown up playing sports. So, you know, I was really passionate about this connecting of the dots. And not that I was never that obsessed about being in the room with the athlete or being seen at the Super Bowl or whatever else. Like, it's nice that I've like had the opportunity to do those things.
The gloss.
But, you know, yeah. So I think I was very obsessed about like the problem and the business. So, you know, if someone said to me, $20,000, come to this conference and do this, I'd be like, well, are there going to be brands there? Is my buyer going to be there? You know, and so I didn't used to go to a lot of the sports business conferences because I'm like, if you're already in the room, you don't need us. You already know everyone, right? And so I think I was like, it was probably like a good combination of a few things. I was an outsider to the American sports industry. You know, like I knew sponsorship and I've worked in cricket and golf and field hockey and, you know, whatever else, but I didn't know America. So again, I think like, would I necessarily like have kept at it if I could have been like a VP at CAA? Maybe not. Like, I think it's quite hard to innovate when you've got like a path, whereas I was like on the outside. So I think one there, two, you've got to not run out of money. Like that's it. And so frugal founder over here, for better or for worse, like we could have probably spent more and grown quicker and it's 11 years in, we're still doing it. But like, I think what it allowed you to do was like ride the waves of COVID, work from home, change in social, and now is our like heyday, right? Like creator, influencer, athlete, it's never been stronger. So again, like the pivot away, not away from properties, but realizing that. So I think like not running out of money and not running out of passion.
But that's an important point here too, this pivot from property to content creation. Was there a point where you thought, okay, was it during COVID and you're like, man, everybody's really churning out great content, you know, the properties themselves aren't playing. Is that the moment where you felt like the pivot? Because you talk about being passionate about sport. There's been a ton of change in that industry in a very short amount of time. So talk about that transition.
Well, it was so funny because I remember when we first went out to raise money, you know, we mentioned like I lived in San Francisco for 6 months, joined 500 startups. And at the end of that, you know, you have this big demo day and you're raising money and you're speaking to people. And everyone was like, a few people were like, oh, so you're like influencer marketing. And I was like, no, like,
no, nothing like that.
Nothing like that, like dirty words. Whereas I'm like sports sponsorship, like cool, $60 billion industry. This is what we are. And then also they were like, so you're like an agency. And I'm like, are you kidding? We're in a tech accelerator. Like we're a tech play. Today, we are a tech-enabled agency for athlete and influencer marketing.
There you go.
So like, there you go. Now, when did it happen? I remember when we got Walmart as a client and the title approached us as influencer marketing. I'm like, you could call us whatever you want. Like, you do whatever you want. Give us your business. No, but like, I think
I will move to Fayetteville.
Exactly. So it was that like, you know, and but it was linked to the business. They were, you know, we had people basically saying, like, I remember Sperry's when we signed them, you know, the shoe company, and they were like, we know fashion and we know, you know, our verticals. We don't really know sports and athletes, so you're our athlete influencer solution. And I'm like, oh,
am
okay,
I?
yeah, like, yeah, oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Did you
So
have
I
to?
think like,
Did you resist it at first? Like, because you said earlier, like, you love the idea of sponsorship. I don't really hang out with the athletes. It's not my thing. And this kind of gets a little adjacent to that. So I'm wondering if the pivot was was it emotionally difficult for you to make that switch, or was like, man, this is where the opportunity is?
I think again, like being so focused on the problem, like I love team deals. Like I love a good team deal. Like last year we did a couple of team deals and I absolutely loved it. But doing it through a marketplace without like touch is really difficult. And there's like, it was almost like this like tough, okay, the athlete thing we can solve through a marketplace and tech and use data and do better deals. And this thing we really can't. And it's not like, I mean, I love doing athlete deals. Like, I think they're awesome. Like, we're hopefully about to close something with a Knicks player. And like, that it's so cool to say, like, you know, and there's like a junior team member. So it's like so cool to say, like, you have been able to, like, back in the day, like, you'd have to be 20 years in the industry to close a Knicks deal, right? And like, so, like a Knicks player deal. And so I really, I don't resist the athlete side of things. I think I definitely had a little bit of a moment with like being so social because you know we didn't like I mean I love I love a logo placement on a hat in golf for tennis because that's kind of
Right, when
like
it's
a bit
well
of a
done and
traditional,
clever
but
and that kind of thing. Yeah, nothing
yeah,
more seamless.
exactly. So do I love but that's like a whole societal thing, right? Like social is where everything's at.
Yeah.
It does work for brands. We can do those deals quite easily. Our platform is built for that. So I would say on a business level, I absolutely love it. Society wise, my views on social are, you know,
Well, it's
they're
also sort
different.
of changed, particularly with a newer fan, a younger fan. The nature of fandom has changed a little bit too with the advent of social media too, because it allows them to connect with individual athletes in a way that they never were able to before. So the team used to be the pathway to connect to those athletes, but it's not the case anymore. Like I grew up a Celtics fan because I grew up in Boston, but I know like my son is interested in specific players on that. So and if they move, oftentimes sometimes he'll root for another team. God help me that he does that. But it has changed the nature. It has changed the nature of fandom, and so open sponsorship has to reflect that too. It is a pivot. That's important.
And to be honest, like there is many elements of it that I absolutely love. We actually just ran a report on our data where I was like,
we're going to talk about it.
Talked about Cook Claude. Well, no, not that one actually. I've got another one that I was like, I went to Claude and I was like, I've got this hypothesis that since COVID, more female athletes have talked about their family life and they've talked about non-sporting things, which is what has led to like all the engagement and the eyes and whatever else. Could you help me verify this? And it did, and it gave me the numbers. And I thought that was so really interesting. And so what I do love about what we do is we are giving athletes like, you know, you do a brand deal and it's like, show me the life behind who you are. And like, I didn't grow up knowing, you know, again, like United, like I didn't grow up knowing what Alex Ferguson's wife looked like or like all of these things. And so I think, I think it's like kind of cool to be part of that movement that is connecting fan to athlete, and making them more of an individual, like a
something you're going to identify with. Now, you brought it up, and I would do so. I know Claude is producing a lot of content for you and things like that right now. I know you've got your other machine is churning away on Claude right now, working on crunching data. But you did just release the State of the Athlete and Influencer Marketing Report for this past year, and I think we're going to jump into some of the findings on that because it is fascinating to see what some of the numbers say, particularly when you're talking about a marketplace as large as yours and that you're working with. Let's get the numbers become very interesting. There's a lot of detail in there, but I'm wondering if there was anything that you read when it first was produced that made you go, oh, didn't expect to see that. Was there anything in the report that really caught you by surprise?
Yeah, I think the female numbers, like I knew it was going up, and then obviously we have we're not just athletes, so we're like adjacent. So yoga influencers obviously gets thrown into athletes, Peloton instructors. So I knew, but I was surprised by it because the year before I think it was like 56%. So it was the first year it flipped to be more. So I think the female numbers is really interesting. But again, it goes with the idea that like the social side of things, the content, they're better at producing content, probably better value. So it all made sense, but I was surprised at like that number for sure.
Right, because I think that's the headline number there. It's like 75% of the deals on the platform go to female athletes. Do you think that is just an indicator that these are just that women are more productive and effective online in using social media? So that's where the brand dollars are headed, or is it brands looking to exploit new opportunities with women's sports?
I think a little bit of all of it. I think what the consumer is a female, so like, you know, that's the way you go. Obviously, female sports, lots of eyes on that. Then we have a lot of like female athletes who do a lot of deals because they like it, and you know, there's a lot of categories. Whether you're thinking like protein shakes or whatever else, even when we're talking to brands selling to males, they'll often say like the wife might buy it. Well, the wife buys it for the kid. Sorry, the mother buys it for the kid. The wife buys it for the husband. So I think there are more brand dollars focused on that, which again, you just didn't see it before in TV because it was never targeted to one or the other.
Right. So then again, so it's that female head of household. It's a way for engaging. It's a way for brands to connect, and female athletes and influencers tend to be a great pathway to be able to do that. I also saw that deal sizes are increasing. I think they more than doubled from 24 to 25. So is this, do you think, a function of brands becoming more sophisticated about these opportunities and then wanting to stand allocating more budgets, or have the athletes be, hey, I'm a little more sophisticated now. I know what I do is worth more than $10,000, $5,000 here or $2,000, right? So there's just like a sophistication that's growing.
Yeah, I would say all of that, plus us probably understanding what works so you can build more value into a deal. Say, for example, you know, like, hey, this has worked. So a lot of the deals we do, the way that we work with brands often is like, there's a lot of A/B testing. So a lot of like one-offs if you can. Obviously that doesn't work with like a big NBA player or like golf or whatever else. But, you know, if you're doing smaller deals, like do 10 smaller deals, an equestrian, a track and field, male, female, non-athlete, and then see what works and double down.
Okay.
And so we get a lot of repeat deals, and then the repeat deals could be for like 3 months, or they're more built out. And that's like the perfect partnership, because back in the day, you'd have to either sign long-term or none at all. And now it's like you can do a bit of everything. So I think that probably also a little bit of like we as a company are maturing, so signing bigger clients, which is quite nice, and therefore doing bigger deals.
So that idea then that there's an efficiency in working with different athletes that allow you to really dive in and test what's going on, then take those test results and move them over to the athletes as a whole. Dude, it's that flexibility and the ability to pivot fairly quickly that really seem to be elevating the market. Fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing being is because like, again, whether you do one deal or 10 deals is quite similar through us. And then as an athlete, like, you know, it's not, we've taken away like contracts and payment issues and all of that. And so like before you might not do a deal unless it was worth X amount or the agent was making that. Now it's like click of a button, yes, your payment details are in there. So I think like the friction to do these smaller deals is gone down. And a big part of this is authenticity, because you might say, well, I like the brand, I would like to be paid more, but hey, if the brand's cool, I'll take it, and hopefully repeat.
Yeah. It's interesting too, like you bring up the simplicity of it and taking away the friction of creating these kinds of deals. And in a world in which companies and marketers are used to buying, you know, AdWords and creating these markets that are just so easy to both create and evaluate effectiveness, there's sort of a tail that you're putting on open sponsorship that's replicating that for these kinds of partnerships. Fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. In fact, actually, one of the biggest markers for our success was when it was one of our advisors, and he was like, you think about ROI, and most people think about I as a monetary number, return on dollar investment. He was like, have you thought about I as time? And I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, how does your platform feel on time? And we know that, we're a two-sided market. We were. But as a brand, you then deal with an agent, and then they're like, you're at the finish line, and they say no, or like you're chasing someone and you have to send 20 messages. You have to log in and say like, hey, where's the content? Or it doesn't look good, and whatever else. So we realized like the eye of the dollar value was good, but the eye of your time was pretty rubbish. And hence why we then implemented like this full service model where we're like, we'll give you the time back, pay us a bit more, trust us a bit more. And I'd say that when the friction, part of that friction is the process and the tech, and part of that friction is we do a lot more for you, which is a bit ironic because it's a bit more like an agency. But actually, it just works really well because, the programmatic, we don't know when we're doing things, how much is going on in the background. You think you pressed a button and then like, whatever else. So like, it's quite funny that people are like, oh, it's all automated. And you're like, my account management team would say, yes, to some extent, and some extent it's ours, but yeah.
You're quoted in the report as saying the brands winning in influencer marketing in 2026 are not the ones with the biggest budgets. They're the ones asking better questions. So putting you on the spot, what are those questions? Like, what should brands be asking to be more effective in this regard?
So there's a few questions of themselves and internally, and then there's a few questions of us, and then there's a few questions of the athletes and the influencers, right? So that's
this is a lot of questions.
I think the biggest thing, very quickly. So the biggest thing internally is, what is success? What do we need? I think too many people, you've been in the sponsorship world. Sponsorship like this thing that you do on the side over here because your CEO likes golf, and it's not connected to marketing. And in fact, marketing, like, why do they get an infinite budget, whereas every dollar of mine has to be like, reported for?
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And so basically, I would say like the first thing is like treat influencers, athletes, treat this as like part of your marketing thing and be like, what is your success? What is your goals? Where are your pain points? If your meta ads are not performing, this content could be better. If your PR is a bit rubbish, this could be better. If you want to have a podcast strategy, this could be useful. So it's
you mean I should have a strategy? Podcast strategy?
No, you would be the strategy.
Wait a minute.
Sorry. I'd say like one is like, no, that was good. I'd say like one is like, what is success?
Yeah.
And that is like the big question internally. And then the second is of us, which is like kind of what I talked about that time. Here are the things that we as a company are good at, and here's what we're not. And here's what's really important. Like, when we deal with like a Walmart, they have to go through lots of like legal stuff. And so it delays deals, which means that we can't do 100 influence athletes for them because it's quite, taxing, whereas like someone else has like built for that. And so I think it's just like understanding the relationship between us. And then it's the athlete influencer, which is like, why should we genuinely pick you? And the other thing is, what we're seeing more is, what's your idea for the creative? Which was never being asked because we used to just feed, there's a script. But now it's like, well, what's your idea? What are you bringing to the table? What's going to resonate? Because at the end of the day, like if it tanks, most people are judging this on like virality, engagement rates. If it tanks, and the athlete's like, well, you gave me the script, it's not my fault. Then, so I think it's like the question really being is like, why should we work with you? But give me something quality and what's going to work, and it's just a bit more collaborative.
Doesn't that also get back to the idea of authenticity too? I mean, it's if you look at an athlete influencer, and if they're reading a script, it's almost, you can tell. I mean, it was written by marketers. Versus, tell us what you want to do. Like, what's that going to look like for you? People talk about authenticity, but it's such a simple thing. That's how you engender to make them part of this process, isn't it? Now, I realize there's risk taking there, but the payoff, I'm assuming, can be much more dramatic.
100%.
Yeah. Now, there's this little thing going on now you're based in London. little thing going on here in the U.S. with college athletes, name, image, likeness, and which almost overnight you have 500,000 college athletes essentially become eligible to be on your platform. So does that new funnel is it like an overwhelming opportunity, or do you feel like there has to be caution for all the triad of people, for your company, but also the brands and the athletes themselves? Like, how does that filter out from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting because obviously we existed before that. Then this ruling hit, right, July 2021 or 2020, and suddenly a few things happened. One, we got a lot of competition because there was a lot of people building marketplaces just for NIL.
Bananas.
That was quite interesting. But again, yeah, so that was crazy, but also good because then there are more eyes on the whole thing. I would say the caution here is that the big numbers that get thrown around are either for very specific people. So, like it was like the Cannon twins or like the quarterback or, like the point guard, or they're being driven by boosters, collectives, non-true marketing sources.
Yeah.
And so, it created a little bit of hassle when our investors were like, why are you not doing more? And it's like, it's not these are not marketing deals. And then it was like, what do we do with this? Should we, we thought about like, should we work with collectives? Should we work with schools? And I guess, again, back to that thing that I said right at the beginning, I love sponsorship. I want to do sponsorship deals. So like, if you want to do a sponsorship deal with an athlete, great. But I can tell you, we have like student athletes and these deals will have a couple of $1,000s, like, yes, some of them, the big ones exist, but
they get the headlines.
And then, exactly. And then the other thing is like, the other thing that people throw around like big, like we say it, we've got 33,000 athletes and influencers in our network, but what happens is, what's the point if they're not doing deals? Like,
you don't need a marketplace for that.
Truly, like investors, like sophisticated people will say, okay, but how many are active? How many have done deals? And so I think there was like this big thing at the beginning, which was like, we have 100,000 college athletes. It's like, okay, great, but how many have you actually done a deal for?
3%.
Otherwise, yeah, exactly. So what's the point? And so I would say, like, is it a great business? Yes. Do I truly believe that? Like everyone, I don't know if you saw there was like some controversy this week because the Olympic, the IOC CEO, maybe, I think it was, she said that Olympians shouldn't get paid. And so like, I think athletes like should get paid. But there's like payment and then there's like the sponsorship. And I think they should be able to do sponsorship deals, but it's also like, there has to be a market, like having sold sponsorship for 20 years, like you need to have a brand who's willing to pay you. Well, and that's the hardest bit.
I think there's another interesting point too. Like, you've been in this business for, like we talked about, 11 years. You've collected a lot of data and you've collected a lot of information. So does that almost become the real asset of the company, to be able to right size and measure all with that history? Here's what the market should be like.
Yeah. So we do a lot with pricing. Yeah. It's really complicated because, you transfer from, let's say, college, right? You transfer from one school to another. Your market rate has changed. So your big market to small market and, all of that. And then, you might be at the top here, and that's what we're seeing, where they don't want to go to the pro leagues because then they might be on the bench and then their marketability goes down. And so, pricing athletes, all of this stuff it's nuanced, and then it's nuanced based on the brand and whatever else. So yeah, like we think about pricing a lot because it shouldn't just be what the like, there should be market rate, and then you can decide if you want to take it or not.
And then I'm also assuming like you're one of the few places that people can go and really get a sense of the historical benchmarks associated with this too. So what should I be asking for? Well, here's what 11 years worth of data can tell you. I'm also interested right now too about what the future looks like a bit, because you crossed into profitability in 2024, going like crazy in 2025. What are the keys to keeping that momentum going for you?
Yeah. I'd say it is a focus on what's going well, like doubling down on it. So, we know that the balance of athlete is our differentiating point. It's why people come in, but then having the non-athlete side of the business is really impactful. So I'd say focusing on what's going well, focusing on the fact that we service and making sure our account managers are world class, really awesome. Our business model, I think so many people die because of incorrect business models and incorrect margins and things like that. So we're about to raise our prices a little bit. And again, it's because we service so much and you want to make sure. And so things like that. So I'd say one is focusing on what's going really well. And then the second is, of course, with AI, you need to figure out what's your true value? Because, does someone need us for discovery? Not really, but you do need us to do outreach because, it's great that Gemini or whoever, ChatGPT, can give you a list of 10 people, but then what are you going to do? DM them from your brand channel and start negotiating over IG. And so I think, and then what do you even what do you pay them and what's the deal look like?
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, and then exactly
but it goes back to that idea of time that you brought up previously, right? You just let's bring efficiency to this process.
100%. And then really focusing on success, right? And success across the board, success for the customer, success for the athletes, success for what our team looks like. So I think we're really clear, we want to double revenue every year. We want to do innovative things. We want to have clients that love us and, not be a churn factory. So it's just how do we make those happen?
A couple of questions about the company as we start to wrap up here. You count Serena Williams and David Blitzer as investors, and so the concept of the athlete investor has really elevated a lot in the last few years as they've really started to understand what their value is. And I'm wondering what you've learned from working with folks like that in the investment community versus the more traditional path of VC investment. What's been the good and what's been some of the challenge?
So the good is obviously the validation, the marketability that comes out of it, right? I could never afford to pay Serena to be a brand ambassador, and this way she's actually given us the money. So that is second to none. You obviously get the validation hit once when you announce, and then it's up to you to figure out how do you keep doing that. And again, authenticity, right? It works because it's Serena, she's sports, she's female, she's business savvy. So I think, and David, similar vibe. So I'd say the validation is the upside. I would say the downside is obviously a bit of access. They're very busy people. And even though there are lead investors, that check size is, David got billions in sports,
got
right?
a couple different spoons in a lot of different pots kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, one of my, I'm not going to say favorite because they're all
your favorite.
Great investors, but they're all my favorites. But so one of our investors is David Stern, who is a former NBA commissioner, Eric Stern's son. And every year he invites me to NBA All-Star, and I get a ticket to the NBA Tech Conference, which is one of my favorite summits. And it was a much smaller check size, but I don't know, he's just a bit. It's a different kind of invested, right? And so, and then you've got a few friends. Actually, last night I had dinner with Oxford, the Oxonian Ventures team, which is formerly Oxford Angel Fund based out of San Francisco. And so, everyone has different. Some people are good for matching. Some people are good for inviting you to things. Some people are good for this. And so, I think it's hard to know in advance what's going to be useful and what do you even need, right? Because what I needed 5 years ago is different to what I might need now. But I would say when people think about fundraising, if you're a great AI company and you're Sam Altman or Elon Musk, fine, you can be picky. But I would say take money from wherever you get it, as long as you feel you feel good with the person, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, they could leave their VC, right? And then that's it. The relationship's gone. So,
is it important to look at it beyond just the dollars? The dollars are attractive, but is it important to feel that they have category expertise here that I can really draw on, or maybe they've got a lot of sports background,
or is it more about having confidence in self and confidence in your own mission that makes that more or less not irrelevant, but less important?
Yeah, I think like, no one here, I can't imagine anyone who wouldn't think about fundraising by going, okay, first I want to get the maybe like the celebrity names, then plus the Andreessen Horowitz, and then industry specific people, because that's validation.
Sure. Okay.
So I think like, yes, all of that matters, but at the end of the day, like fundraising is about technology. It's a definite like takeaway from the business. You're not building, you're fundraising. And so I would say like wrapping it up quickly. And as I said, like you never really know who's going to be that's what I think I have found. Like you don't know who's going to be helpful, and people are like helpful in different ways. And ultimately, they've given you a check. They're not. Maybe it's like if they've got a big stake, but ultimately, like they're investing in you to go run,
and they want you to be successful.
So they want you to be successful. So if you even have a monthly call with someone, how much can they help you? And you can't fill them up on like 29 days worth of contacts within like 1 hour. So I think the money is the biggest benefit and the validation.
Yeah. Now, you're a female founder working in sports and technology. Those two industries haven't always been the most accommodating to women. So I'm wondering, based on your experience, for others who are thinking about moving into those worlds and want to explore their own new ventures in sports and or technology, I'm wondering what thoughts or advice you might have for people who are listening to this conversation and thinking, yeah, okay, that's a person I want to emulate.
Well, I credit sports for the reason why, because you get on the pitch or the court or whatever, and nothing matters: color of skin, length of hair, gender. Like it's truly how good you are, the effort you put in. So I think I had never really thought of. I'm also like with 3 sisters, so I think never having a boy in the family made like. And then it was funny because someone said this, like I went to a girls' school growing up in England, and they were like, one of the benefits is you never think about gender. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right, because there's no like you don't do science or you don't do maths because there's no other gender there. So I feel like I personally would say like don't think of your gender too much or your sex. Like it's really a case of like what we talked about, like passion, resilience. What I will say is it's a way longer journey than you realize. Like, like 10, 11 years on, I'm like, wait, this is the longest relationship I've had. Like, so I'd say it's more a case of the resilience, the passion for the mission, and that will come across. I don't personally love when you get pigeonholed. I'm lucky that women's sports wasn't such a big thing maybe when I started, because otherwise I might have been like, people might have been like, oh, well, you're in women's sports. And I was, and I did walk into rooms saying, I'm going to change the face of NFL athlete marketing. And I'm sure there were some people that were like, probably not. But whatever, like it didn't, doesn't really matter. But I think like, I don't think women should do, that was the thing that irked me most, right? It was like women invested in beauty and pregnancy and menopause. And it was like, and men invested in space, or men got invested, and maths and bio. So that I think is changing, but that's the biggest thing I think. Just be wary of the fact that there are some people who are going to go, oh, but are you doing it for women's sports? And you have to be like, well, no,
no, just sports.
Work on both sides. Yeah, exactly.
I'm with Ishveen Jolly. She is the CEO and founder of Open Sponsorship. Ishveen, joining us from London today. So thanks very much for the time. Ishveen, before I let you go, though, I'm going to put you in the lightning round. I got some questions for you. All I want from you is a quick response, first thing that pops into your mind. Are you ready to go?
Okay.
It was a little wary. Okay, here we go. Question number 1. You were a netball captain for Oxford. Explain why netball should be more popular in the United States.
Okay, first clarification, I was captain for my college at Oxford. It's very important because someone hears that and thinks,
all right. That is the American ineffectiveness of question asking right there. That is a fault of your host. That is not Ishveen's.
No, that's perfect. Why should netball be more popular? Well, it is, I believe, one of the most widely played female sports across the world, and it is weird that it is not in America. Also, I think it would be really helpful for everyone who has grown up playing netball, which is like all of England, all of like Singapore, Australia, South Africa, all these other countries, to not have to live in America and explain netball and say it's like basketball for girls, and then go, well, there is basketball for girls, so it's not really.
Yeah, I think
like
we have that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so netball coming to a community center near you. Both of your parents are doctors. How did they take it when you told them you weren't going to medical school?
I had, this puts it perfectly, it was parent-teacher evening, and I had already got into Oxford to study economics, which, you know, most parents would probably be proud of.
Probably pretty excited
about. Yeah, and my dad was speaking to my biology teacher, and she was like, she's doing really well. And he was like, so she still has a chance to go into medicine. And I was like, what
He's
are you
not going to give up that dream yet.
Yeah, exactly. But now I think they're very, very happy. So, yeah.
Very proud, I'm sure. You made the Forbes 30 under 30 sports list. That's quite an accomplishment. I'm sure your parents are very proud of that. But what award would you gladly trade that one for? It's a toughie. It's a toughie. I put you on the spot on that one. I mean, it could be like an Oscar. I mean, you know, it could be like an ESPY. You know, it could be anything. Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that I don't know probably shows how like unaccoladable I am right now. Where I'm like, what am I achieving with myself? Well, I mean, obviously, growing up in England, my dad has an MBE, which is like, you know, the like you've got like Sir, which is like David Beckham's or so, and whatever else. Like it's like there's different rungs. So maybe, I would get like a lady. Yeah, like I don't mind.
OBE would be pretty sweet.
Yeah. I think so.
Can I borrow it when you get it? I'd just like to try that out for a little bit. All right, a couple more. What blisses you out more than a well-organized inbox?
I would say a good-looking Excel sheet.
Just orderly columns and rows. There's nothing better.
Like formatting, you bold your headline, like you bold your title, like borders in the right place. Yeah, like a good Excel sheet makes me happy.
Okay, last one. Who is a mentor or peer you'd like to give a quick shout out to?
Oh my gosh, I've got so many. I have a funny view on like mentors where you need kind of like investors, you need things at different times. And I'm like, okay, well, is it an old school mentor who's like now like a friend, or is it more like a new school mentor? I think right now, actually, I would say like good vibe people who just are like really encouraging of like where you're at and whatever else.
Where the great energy comes from.
Yeah, where the great energy, like, hey, you've been trying, you've been going, you're doing really well. One of them, actually, one of our investors is a woman called Alexandra Jung. She's quite big and well known in the finance world. And she's just always been amazing. I remember when we were losing a lot of money before we became profitable, she was like, it's called expensive lessons. And I was like, okay, well, I'd rather not have them. But, you know, so I think like she's always just been like really, really supportive. And again, you know, on the sports side, being a female, definitely I look up to her a lot.
Yeah. Ishveen Jolly, thanks so much for the time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, David.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sports Business Conversations podcast. If you enjoyed it, we always appreciate a subscribe, share, comment, or like. And if you're the social type, you can always follow us in all the usual places. Don't forget, past episodes are located at adcpartners.com/podcast. A quick shout out to Scott Holmes for composing our theme music. This podcast is a production of ADC Partners. All rights are reserved.